Welcome everyone to DAWOODSHOW. Today I have Farhad Shamo. He's joining me from France. Farhad is a Yazidi genocide survivor. He is a humanitarian activist and an advocate for Yazidis. He is the president of Voice of Yazidis and founder of Yazidi Youth Network Obama Foundation Leader Europe Program. He has masters in diplomacy and international relation at HEEP School of Advanced International and Political Studies in Paris. He also has masters in arbitration, prevention, and conflict resolution at HEEP, sponsored by United Nations Institute for Training and Research. Farhad Shamo, welcome to Dawood Show.
Thank you, Dawood. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be able, and thanks for this opportunity to be able to speak to you today.
Thank you, Farhad. When we speak about the Yazidi genocide, we usually speak about so many personal stories, and every Yazidi who survived from the genocide has a stories. There are stories of people who fled their homes, leaving everything behind, and trying to find a safe shelter elsewhere. There are stories of people who stayed in their house. They were not able to flee because they didn't have transportation, and as a result, they were captured by ISIS. There are also stories of 7,000 women and children who were captured by ISIS and went through the enslavement, rape, and torture. And also there are stories of Yazidi heroes who fought in the front lines in first days, and also they continued fighting ISIS. And as a result, many of them, they were murdered, such as Khairi Sheikh Khadri and also Dayagule, who took the gun and shoot two ISIS fighters and their leaders when they tried to capture her family. And Yazidi honored them by honoring their name to make statues in Sinjar city. So you are also a genocide survivor, and we would like to hear your story as a genocide survivor.
So my name is Farhad Shamo. I am from Sinjar. It's the village on the north of Sinjar Mountain, close to Syria border. I grew up in a family. I grew up in a family with my six brothers and two sisters and my parents. We were mainly depending on farming, agriculture, and let's say animal. Living in that village, since I remember, we were struggling for living in a better situation, let's say. Our only dream, for example, I'm lucky that I am among the first generation from the Yazidi community who have access to education. And our only dream was to be able at the evening to light up our oil lamp because we didn't have electricity. Yeah. Growing up in this community, I always heard in stories from our granddads, grandparents, our elders. They tell us about bias and discrimination and massacres and genocide against the Yazidi. But it was only stories for me. But in 2014, we have witnessed it by ourselves. Yeah. I was in a farm with my family. I remember we got a call from our friend in South who told us that there is ISIS entering to the Kirzereg village in the south and other village, and he told us, please flee. And that time we were still in the farm, the time that the ISIS started its genocidal campaign. From our neighbors, we got threats. They say, my mom was with our sheep aside of an Arabic village called Chiri village. A child from that Arabic village who told my mom, you are infidels and Islamic State is going to come and kill all of you. Imagine these words from a child. Yeah. That was clear that this speech had been told by his parent and his community. We managed to flee from the farm to the village, and then we stuck in the village that evening, the evening of 3rd of August, when ISIS started its campaign around Sinjar. We learned from our relative in the mountain that we could not leave our house by car. So the only way was possible, we should leave by walking through the valleys until to the mountain.
Yeah.
The journey between the village to the mountain, it was harsh, especially after we learned that ISIS kidnapped girls and take children and kill men. I remember that my mom came to me and tell me, you should take care of your sisters. And I had a cousin also, she was young. So our only focus was more on how to protect my daughter, my two sisters, and my cousin, because they were young girls.
Yeah.
In one moment, my mom gave me a small bottle of poison, of black poison. She told me, Farhad, you should tell your sisters, I cannot give to them. You should tell your sister, give them once the men got killed. We were quite certain that we could not manage to reach to the mountain, because we see the lights. People from the mountain tell us, yeah, everyone entering to the village, there is cars coming. They are seeking for people in there. It was after midnight. We managed to get out from the village group by group with all my relatives and my family. The moment that my mom gave me a small bottle of poison to give to my sisters, that if they want to die, not being end up in captivity, they should drink this poison. So what was the feeling that moment is, and I cannot express my feeling, having something in my hand that would kill the both of my sisters, that I will give them drink to end up your life.
Yeah.
We managed to arrive to the mountain, and fortunately, we were really lucky. Before arriving to the mountain, we were always able to hide ourselves from the lights. Even the car of ISIS were coming, and they were lighting by their strong lighters, projectors, all around. They see if there is some people walking around. Whenever the car came, we were able to find a valley, a small hill to just hide ourselves. We arrived to the mountain at 4 a.m. At 4 a.m. after walking for hours, and the life in mountain. I still remember the cry and ISIS were coming, starting from that evening, shouting the mountain randomly, because they knew every rock of Sinjar Mountain hide an Yazidi who escaped for his life.
Yeah.
We stayed in mountain for 1 day. We got some food, some nutrition, with like something that we can survive with. In the second day, nothing left. I arrived to a point called Bakira. Bakira is to the west side of Sharfaddin Shrine, which is very known point in Sinjar Mountain. In Bakira, there was sorry, someone just saying in Bakira there was a family of Faqir Hasso who actually knew something like this will happen. They stored some food, but thousands were there, and that food ended in 2 days.
Yeah.
We started to make groups, what to do. Are we going to die like this? And in the meantime, we were hearing the story of people coming from south who don't have water, who don't have food, who are dying, who don't know where they will end up, entering mountain in any random point. In that point, I started working by taking some water from north to south. We didn't get network, like a signal that we can connect it by phone. We didn't get electricity, so our phone shut off so quickly. Because out of the battery was let's say They closed. So we take water to the south in hope to find someone. To not go to too much details, one moment I remember, I managed to arrive like 3 kilometers walking in the mountain. I met two guys. I told them I want to find some people to give them water. They told me those guys were also people who took water and returned it back.
Yeah.
They told me, you see that group of trees, that there is in Sinjar Mountain, we don't have a lot of trees.
Yeah.
There is some places. In that group of trees, it was so far under extreme hot weather of summer of Iraq. He told me in that tree there is a group of children with two old guys, and their men have left them to go to bring some support, and they are almost dying.
Yeah.
They're almost dying. I kind of, when I hear the story, I kind of run. In a moment, I needed to water myself because I was like just really motivated. I need to reach to them very soon because they told me they are actually in a very bad situation, very thirsty, and also very, very scared, of course. It took me like 3 hours to arrive to these people, but they were not a group. They were just few children. It became night. It was few children and two old men were sitting down there, and the two other people who actually came to bring help for them, they arrived like just few moment before me.
Yeah.
And the old man told us, yeah, the children are sleeping. Actually, they were very thirsty. The children are sleeping. They are very thirsty. We went to wake them up, and the first moment we were shocked that the first child we saw, he was died actually. He was died out. He slept and he didn't wake up. So this is one, and he was not the only one. It happened in few places in Sinjar. In this moment, we come back, and the one we were able to give water, the one I found huge difficulty to return back because I give all my water, and I end up without water. But anyway, I arrived to Bakura, coming back for like hours of walking. There is no food. There is we hear that actually people are dying. People are so desperate, and there is no hope. In the third day, we saw actually a plane of Royal Air Forces. They dropped some water, some food. They didn't drop in our place. They dropped in the main place at the top of mountain on the Sharfadin shrine. But we were like a smaller gathering of the people in Bakra. No one dropped anything for us. That's why we decided actually to go back to cross the barrier of fairs and go down to the village around to bring some to the farms around to bring some tomatoes, some fruits and vegetable that we can find. The first day we went back, we went to the Nerbi farm by mountain. We managed to find a lot of tomato. Were already grabbed and they were ready. So we directly brought tomato to the mountain. It was like a very happy moment for the children. We distributed tomato over 100 people, and there was once we got the tomato, 10 minutes after we left the farm bombed.
Oh.
The ISIS were striking us, but we didn't know. Honestly, once we saw the tomato, we got few weapons. Also, everyone put his weapon, and we just grabbed the tomato. If they arrived like a few minutes earlier, they gave to stop us and kill us. Because we even forget that we actually should protect ourselves. Because we were also very hungry, and we find some hope for some people. In the other day, we decided to go back to the village, to two villages actually, to Guhbal and Zoraba. The way the people went back, and I remember one story, it's a very remarkable story. My brother was with one group who go back to the Guhbal, to our village. they decided to take some people from the same village, so they know the house, they know the region. We didn't saw anyone. In the village, they met an Arabic guy who was actually known by our neighbor, and we know him. So they didn't stop him. He said, "I'm not here to do anything. I'm just here to open doors for animals. I know many animals are locked down." They left the village back, and this guy called ISIS. This guy called ISIS before they come to our region. So there were three groups. One go to Zorama, one go to Guhbal, and one stop it in the middle to actually check if there is some danger. Yeah. Unfortunately, we got a call from the other side of mountain, from Gurmiz. My uncle was there, who told us there is 12 cars coming toward you, and they are well equipped and have strong weapons. We suddenly, after 15 minutes, we saw 4 cars, not 12 cars. So they stopped it in groups, so they secured the region, and they stopped it in the middle of our security point that we put, and we were all hiding on the Guhbal point, checkpoints, the cross to the Guhbal checkpoint. We were hiding in the oil station, we were hiding in a house of Mr. Qaso, who was with us, and we were also hiding a bit far toward the mountain, between the main street and the mountain. We tried to call those who have a bit of charge, try to call the people who come back from Guhbal, because they will come directly to that point where the ISIS car stopped. We tried to call, and there was no signal, because it's very known between Guhbal to the street, there is no signal. It's very known. So there was no network capacity around. We called, and no one, it didn't reach. It didn't reach, and we suddenly saw the car of our friends, and my brother is one of them actually. They just get closer to us, but they realized it a bit far that there's something abnormal. Once they realized it, they tried to stop, and ISIS started shooting them from far. From that moment, ISIS started shooting them, and we were around. We also tried to shoot. This fighting ended up that the guy who owned the house on that checkpoint, who died directly, the son of Faqir Hasso, who was our 10 leader, who actually got shot on his head, and we managed to take him away to the mountain, and he died in the mid of night. And we come back, and my brother was missing. Where is my brother? There is my brother and other person from all people who returned back. That evening was hard. My brother died. I went to my mom. I told her, okay, I'm going to search for my brother. If I'm going to die, I don't want to die in your sight. I want to die away from you anyway. So the hope of living was not there. We just wanted to actually find an opportunity to a bit expand our lives with finding some food, water. And the moment that I realized my brother was not there, and we were quite certain he is one of the guys who got killed, me and 2 of my uncle, we kind of moved to the region. We said maybe he survived, maybe he got shot somewhere. Especially we heard a story that there is a guy under the streets was shouting, I'm dying of thirst, give me water, give me water. We directly thought that is my brother. Before arriving that point, my brother called me. And I was not managed to answer him. I just didn't realize. Then I told my uncle, my brother called me. He said he didn't give me any hope. He told me, Farhad, all his friends sent him a lot of charge and money on his phone. So the ISIS using his phone. So my uncle was so hopeless, like he's for sure. But fortunately, we were able to. It was true. It was my brother, and my brother was he managed to actually arrive to the mountain, and it was true. He was one of the person who hid with other person under the bridge, but not the same bridge that the guy who was shouting, because later people found a dead body of one from our village under the. So if my brother didn't call me that moment, I would go to the under the bridge and to check. But once my brother called me and he told me, "Come back, I am on the top hills." That was a story of like hard moments that I can see, I can tell you that now. And we continued like this in the day 9. There was a humanitarian corridor opened towards Syria. 8 to 9. All of my family, I was driving the small car of my uncle, a small Harley we called, and all others were in a tractor. We were 47 people in one tractor. The people who had good car, they crossed, and we were alone. In the Syria border, there was like shouting from far to us. They said it's a secure corridor, but it was not secure. The wheel of our tractor destroyed, but fortunately the tractor had like a long track, and people were able, and their chute were from 5. We're not able to cross the let's say the cover of the track. In the moments that our tractor moved, the tractor are a bit strong, that was good. We saw like 100 cars, multicolored cars, just coming from Syria border. And we just give up. We had few weapons. And even the children were not able to cry that moment. We were like certain that, okay, this is ISIS. We just put ourselves in the day of ISIS, in the heart of ISIS. But in a few minutes, when they get closer, we hear the voice, "Bijiba Khadana Shingale." It was actually a YPG units who came to support and to fight against ISIS. We just looked to each other and we all smiled around. It was like a beginning of new hope. And they came to us, they give us water. They told me, go to this village, they will give you oil, put in your car. And we moved to Nowruz camp. And from Nowruz camp, we stayed for 2 days. And then because there was very hard, the camp was unorganized. And there was also threat of ISIS coming close. And we hear that the United Nations built IDP camps in north of Iraq. And so we crossed the Syria border to the Hook region, and we settled in Hanke camp.